Welcome back to Red Hunt, and this one really makes you question people's judgment. I have two best friends whom I will refer to as Rachel and Lauren. I introduced them last year and we formed a close trio. Things were great until earlier this year when we had a conflict primarily related to my boyfriend, which resulted in them not speaking to me for a month. Although we eventually reconciled, the dynamic has felt off since then. Recently, I have been feeling excluded and pressured by them. Rachel, in particular, tends to push me to hang out or stay longer even when I clearly express my desire to go home. When I cancel or leave early, it feels as though they take it personally instead of respecting my boundaries. Last night, one of them asked in our group chat if we were free. I responded late because I had forgotten and was uncertain about my interest in hanging out. When I finally replied, they had already made plans together and simply informed me of their location. I mentioned that I might join later, and both of them called me separately despite being together. It felt performative, as if they were trying to show that they both cared, but I still felt excluded. I was having dinner with my boyfriend and did not answer their calls. Later, I texted to ask what they were doing, and they sent a photo of themselves painting. I chose not to respond and stayed in instead. Although nothing major happened, it felt off, as if they did not want me there and were subtly dismissive about it. When we hang out, they often make jokes at my expense, which feel like little digs disguised as humor that make me feel foolish or excluded. I do not believe they are bad people, and I know they care about me, but their patterns of behavior are hurtful, whether they realize it or not. There's also a cultural aspect to consider. Both of them are Filipino, and while I understand that this gives them a shared bond, I sometimes feel like an outsider in the group. Additionally, my life has changed significantly. I now live with my boyfriend, have bills and responsibilities, and I am caring for a sick cat while being between jobs. I simply do not have the time or energy to hang out as frequently as I used to. I prefer spending time alone or with my boyfriend, while they are more social and want to hang out often. This mismatch has become increasingly apparent. I also struggle with saying no. I often wait until the last minute to cancel or avoid replying because I am afraid they will judge me or become upset. I recognize that this behavior exacerbates the situation, but it is challenging to be honest when I do not feel emotionally safe with them. Since the conflict, I have felt distant and as if I am walking on eggshells. I still love them, but I do not feel understood, and I am uncertain about how to bridge that gap. At this point, I believe that taking space is the easiest option. Am I the antagonist in this situation? Hey, it sounds like there's a bit of a miscommunication here. I mean, your friends are reaching out and wanting to hang out, so it doesn't really seem like they're excluding you. If you're not sure about going out, just let them know right away instead of waiting. That way, they won't feel like they're leaving you out when they make plans. When they text you about what they're doing, they're trying to include you, not shut you out. If you feel disrespected, it's honestly better to talk to them directly. Everyone has their own stuff going on, so it's totally normal for plans to change. If you want to keep this friendship, you'll need to make an effort too. It's all about communication, you know. Just keep it chill and be honest with each other. Am I the jerk for breaking girl code? Ex and best friend sister. I broke up with my ex recently after a very rocky relationship. I am not perfect, I made mistakes. I kissed someone while we were still together, and I owned that, apologized, and acknowledged the hurt it caused. We then proceeded to date for 4 more months. However, our relationship was deeply unhealthy. He made me feel small, invalidated, and insecure. I ended things because it was not sustainable. What I did not expect was for him to hook up with my best friend's sister. This is someone who has traveled with me and my friend group. She knew everything about our relationship and how hard the breakup was for me, yet she still chose to pursue that connection. When I found out, I was devastated. However, what hurt even more was that my best friend defended her sister and told me she would never choose sides. I understand her position, but I never attacked her sister during this situation. My best friend had previously confided in me about how her sister was having a hard time, especially with relationships, which made me feel even worse. She tried to intervene but ultimately realized they are adults and allowed them to stay over at her apartment. She also invited another one of our mutual friends to hang out with them the morning after, as if it was no big deal. While I do not mind her defending her sister, she never admitted that what happened was wrong or that I did not deserve it. Additionally, she made me feel guilty for crying about it, saying I deserved it because I had initiated the breakup. I attempted to remain calm. I reached out to her sister to express my hurt and my desire to move forward. She apologized, but I cannot shake the feeling that she and my ex are still in contact. I know I should not care, but I feel disrespected and humiliated. I ask my friend for honesty, but I get the impression that she just wants to move on and is tired of the drama. Meanwhile, my ex has shown no remorse. He has blocked me on everything, called me selfish, and claimed I deserved what happened because of how the relationship ended. I feel as though he went out of his way to humiliate me, and my friend did not protect me from it. She enabled it. For the record, this was our first time going out with our friends together after the breakup. We had agreed to keep things amicable and not to engage in certain behaviors in front of one another. It had been exactly 2 weeks since we ended things. Now I feel like I am the unreasonable one for still being upset. My entire friend group feels distant, and I am questioning whether I am overreacting. So am I the antagonist for still being angry and hurt? And for believing this situation went beyond a normal breakup? You really don't need to stress about whether they're still talking. Honestly, it might be a good idea to cut ties with them since they clearly don't care about your feelings. Starting fresh with your friend group could do you some good, you know. Friends should have your back, and it sounds like these folks don't. Now about your ex and your best friend's sister, yeah, it's a bit all over the place. Friend codes don't always cover family members. Your friend can't really control what her sister does, and honestly, it's kind of wrong to expect that from her. Just remember, your breakup might have been partly due to your own actions, so it's time to focus on moving on. Just block them all and let it go. You deserve better. Am I the jerk for peeing in a clogged toilet? I was spending the night at my girlfriend's house when she suddenly had to use the bathroom. For context, she does not use the bathroom very often, and this was her first time in nearly 4 days. At this point, it was around 2:30 a.m., and I really wanted to go to bed, especially since we had to be up early the next day. However, when nature calls, you have to respond. After a few minutes, I received a text from her that said, "Insert my name here. I tried flushing the toilet and it did not flush." She described it as one of the biggest bowel movements she had ever experienced. To be honest, I was so tired that I wasn't sure what was happening. She spent a few minutes trying to flush the toilet again, but she could not use the plunger because it was in her roommate's private bathroom, which required going through her roommate's bedroom. After several minutes of trying, we decided to wait until morning when we could access the plunger and go to bed for the time being. My girlfriend sent a text to her roommate informing her not to use the bathroom, and we called it a night. Unfortunately, I had consumed a lot of water before bed, and around 6:00 a.m., I woke up desperately needing to use the bathroom. I felt that if I did not go immediately, I would have an accident. Since I had just woken up from only 3 hours of sleep, my mind was still foggy, so I followed my instinct to use the toilet, which was the same one my girlfriend had clogged the previous night. I attempted to flush it to see if it was working again, but it was not. I went back to bed for a couple of hours, and when my girlfriend and her roommate woke up, my girlfriend decided to try to plunge the toilet. However, before she entered the bathroom, I informed her that I had used the toilet. Because my urine had been sitting in the toilet for about 2 hours alongside the clogged bowel movement, the bathroom smelled very unpleasant. I still stand by my decision to use the toilet. Am I in the wrong, or should I have found another place to relieve myself? My girlfriend suggested that I should have used the shower. Other people recommended using a cup or the sink. Keep in mind that I had just woken up and was not thinking clearly. Honestly, who hasn't peed while they poo? I mean, it's just part of the deal, right? And let's be real, that smell from a 4-day log. Way worse. Thank your lucky stars that none of those extra flushes turned into a disaster. But seriously, everyone needs a plunger on hand. It's a must-have. And hey, maybe think about adding some fiber to your diet. It can really help. Also, if you're dealing with these issues, a poo knife could be a game changer. Just saying, a little preparation goes a long way. So keep it chill and tackle those bathroom battles head on. Am I the jerk for saying that my friend is an idiot who won't get far in life? My friend, who is 22 years old and male, has recently started a job search because his current role pays him barely above minimum wage for 6 days a week as a project manager for an events company. He is working long hours, and almost half of his pay goes towards travel and lunch. Additionally, his employer is only registering his salary at minimum wage, while the rest is paid under the desk. I offered him a position as a tech recruiter with me for a salary that is 10% lower than the median salary in my country, but still better than his current pay. In this role, he would not have to spend any money on travel since he lives just 3 minutes away from me. I also offered to cover his lunch costs until we transition to fully remote work. Furthermore, he would be employed at a full salary instead of receiving under-the-table payments. This position would allow him to develop a career, as he has only completed high school and has limited options for stable employment. He would also receive benefits such as paid time off, holidays, and sick leave. Additionally, since I focus exclusively on the North American market and financial technology companies, he would have opportunities to advance his career as a tech recruiter in the future. Initially, he accepted my offer but later decided to turn it down because he found a job as an online chat operator. In this role, he would chat with men to receive money from them. This job reportedly pays approximately 30% more than my offer, but it does not include any benefits. Everything is also under the table, meaning he would not have paid time off, insurance, or holidays. Moreover, there is no guarantee that he will earn that salary, as he would only receive a small cut of the donations made by the men. I am concerned that I may have overstepped. During our phone conversation, I expressed my disapproval, saying that he would not have any positive work experiences from this job. I pointed out that it would not look good on his resume and that he would be in a precarious position since nothing is documented. I also mentioned that his role would essentially involve soliciting money from men for inappropriate pictures, which I find to be a poor career choice at 22, especially considering his lack of job experience. Now I am being portrayed as an angry boss in our friend group, and I am being labeled as entitled. I would like to know if I am in the wrong. You might have a point, but honestly, you're definitely the a-hole for how you handled this. That's not how friends talk, especially when you want to help them make better choices. Your friend made his decision, and it's time to respect that and just move on. I mean, an apology would go a long way, even if it feels kind of awkward. You can't force him to change just because you think your way is better. Sure, working under the table isn't ideal, but he's 22 and figuring things out. He might be drawn to the freedom of that job, and honestly, that's not uncommon at his age. It's not really cool to approach him like a boss instead of a buddy. You could have just wished him well, but instead, you're feeling some type of way about his choice. So just pump the brakes and let him find his path. Am I the jerk for wanting Mother's Day brunch to be just me and my mom? I am 19 years old and female, and my sister and I have a brunch reservation at a restaurant for Mother's Day. My mother was working on the actual day, so we chose a day the following week when we would all be free to celebrate. During our discussion about the plans, I mentioned making a reservation for just the three of us. My mother was confused because she thought it would include her husband. I expressed that I wanted to spend some quality mother-daughter time with her without him present. She implied that she would not be able to come if he was excluded, stating that he didn't feel accepted by us. For context, my parents are divorced. I met my mother's new husband, whom I will refer to as stepdad, a few years ago. He is a fun and extroverted person, but he exhibits some behaviors that I find unusual. His family-oriented demeanor often feels like he wants to take on a fatherly role in my life. I set a boundary by expressing that I did not want to refer to him as my stepdad because he did not raise me, and I do not feel comfortable calling him that. This caused tension between my mother and me, which has since been resolved, so I will not go into detail about it. The main issue is that he is very enthusiastic about spending time together as a family. I have spent time with them, although I do not live with them, but it has been 2 years since I have had the opportunity to spend time with just my mother. I did not want her to feel excluded, so I said he could come, but I wanted to clarify that I would like to make future plans for just the two of us. Today, my mother texted asking if I could make the reservation for 5 people instead, in case one of his sons wanted to join. At first, I said I would try because I did not want to create an argument, but eventually I expressed that I would prefer if he did not come. I emphasized that this was supposed to be a celebration for my sister and me with our mother, not a family event. I mentioned that I would be paying for the meal, but my mother offered to cover the costs for stepdad and his son. I stated that I did not want her to pay for them. I simply felt uncomfortable with their presence at this particular celebration. She then indicated she would send money for stepdad and his son. I am currently at work and have not responded yet, but I honestly do not know how to reply. Part of me wants to remain firm and reiterate my boundary, emphasizing that I really just want a girl's day. However, another part of me worries that if I push too hard, she may decide not to come at all, which could strain our relationship. My mother mentioned that she does not want to experience the heartache of excluding anyone. I feel that this is a reasonable occasion to limit the guest list, not because I dislike them, but because I genuinely want some time alone with my mother. Am I in the wrong for wanting this? Honestly, it's pretty clear that SD and his sons had plenty of time around Mother's Day to make their own plans, but now they want to join yours. I mean, this isn't really about the holiday, it's more of a power move. SD seems to think he gets to call the shots, and that's just super shady. If your mom is inviting him along, it kind of shows she doesn't really understand what you had in mind for your outing. You're totally right to feel uncomfortable with that. If it's not the kind of day you envisioned, it might be best to just cancel. Let her know you wanted a simple brunch with just her and your sister. If she wants to include SD and his son, then maybe it's time to reschedule for next year when it can be just the three of you. It's all about what you want, and honestly, you deserve that time together. Am I the jerk for telling my mother that she doesn't know everything? My mother, who is 46 years old, has an attitude where she believes she knows everything simply because she has lived longer than I have. In arguments, if I express that I know more about a topic, she insists that I am mistaken and says things like, "You think you know everything, but I have been alive longer, so I obviously know more." When I prove her wrong, she refuses to acknowledge it and often ends the conversation abruptly. Many of these disagreements have occurred in the kitchen. For example, I make dessert every Eid. Recently, I decided to make gulab jamun, which are small dough balls cooked in a mixture of sugar syrup, rose water, and cardamom. My mother insisted that the balls should not be cooked in the sugar syrup, but should simply be added when the syrup boils and then soaked. However, the Instagram reel I watched and the numerous videos on YouTube indicated that the balls should be cooked in the syrup. To avoid conflict, I followed her instructions because it was Eid and my birthday, and I did not want to spoil the occasion. The dessert turned out a little firm, but my mother did not mention it, perhaps because she realized the outcome. In a more recent incident, I decided to make fettuccine. I measured out 100 grams of flour, created a well, and added an egg. Everything was going smoothly until I remarked that the dough was too hard and asked if it was because I used a smaller egg. It is important to note that my mother has never made homemade pasta. She began to insist that I was doing it incorrectly and that I should add the flour to the egg instead of the other way around. I explained that this was the proper method for making pasta dough, but she became upset. I mentioned that she had never made pasta dough, so perhaps she did not know the correct way. I pointed out that I was still in the process of preparing it and needed to fold and squeeze the dough for a while. She continued to argue that I was wrong for adding flour and then walked away. Am I the one at fault for telling her she was incorrect? Additionally, this type of situation has occurred in non-cooking related scenarios as well, but I do not recall specific examples. The reality is that this is a regular occurrence in our interactions. Alright, it sounds like you two are kind of stuck in this loop, right? Neither of you is really willing to back down. I mean, it's totally normal to want to prove you're right, but sometimes, honestly, it's just better to let it go. You know she's not going to change her mind, so maybe just let her be wrong this time. It's pretty clear that you both really value being right, which is why there's so much tension. Honestly, this is just a typical mother-daughter dynamic. You'll probably get through this and end up with a better relationship down the road. It might help to realize how similar you are, even if it drives you both a little nuts. At the end of the day, family is family, right? So consider whether it's really worth it to keep arguing or if it's easier to just let things slide. Sometimes peace is a bigger deal than being right. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.